Hi guys, today I'm going to quickly talk about um, social interactions and how it affects our daily lives. So throughout my life, I've always found it a lot easier to talk to everyone growing up. Instead of focusing on books and school like I should have, I spent a lot of my time with friends and going out for sports and doing as much social activities as I possibly could. I honestly thrive off of being around people. I have a really big social battery that barely ever runs out. And that's kind of what keeps me going. My brother, on the other hand, is completely different regarding his social life. He spent a lot of his high school and college life with his like playing online with his friends, as well as studying and reading as many books as he could, which is good for him. But in the end, that was his comfort, and being social is mine. Now that we're older, I realize that those traits followed us and became our strongest parts of our lives. Him being school smart has helped him a lot with his career as a computer scientist, and me being socially smart has helped me a lot with gaining the jobs and experience in life that I needed for my job as a real estate agent. Um, as much as we convince ourselves from since we're younger that being school smart is the most important thing, which it still is, um, being socially smart and socially gifted, I mean, should be just as equally as praised. Only because now my brother discusses a lot that as much as he does get his computer science job um, careers, from being a straight A student at the University of Illinois, he discusses that it is more difficult for him to have interviews, more difficult for him to make those social connections and rank up in the business. Um, so there is that downside. He discusses that he wishes he had more social aspect in him that he didn't get to learn throughout high school. Which leads me to my questions of what makes people less or more able to converse with others? In this speech, I'm going to discuss not only why some are more social than others, but how does being less or more social affect everyday life, as well as what makes us like some people better than others in social situations. So like I mentioned, I'm a very social person. The reason I thought this topic of conversation was interesting was because, like I mentioned, not only is my older brother struggling with being social, but some of my friends and my boyfriend are as well. So if my brother and I are from the same family, what caused us to act so socially different? Which leads me to ask, why are people more social than others? Which leads you into if you're an introvert or an extrovert. So according to an interesting theory from Gray in 1970, after studying brains with personality dimensions, it was found that extroverts are less susceptible to fear than introverts. In this scenario, the fear that is being described is the fear of public humiliation, whereas extroverts don't think of that fear as something too life-threatening. What I mean by that is, I'll give you a quick example. We recently were just at Universal Studios. I took my brother and my dad. My mom stayed home. But I took them to Universal Studios. Since I am a team member there, I got to get a discount for them. And we were waiting in line for about an hour to buy tickets. And the line was getting longer and longer. This lady decided to cut in line, and I could tell that my family was frustrated. Like internally, like they were steaming. Me, having worked with guest services, I know how to proceed the conversation with the person. As even though I'm not at work, I think it is something very important. So I came up to her and I was very calm with her, and I explained that we've all been waiting an hour, and there's no reason for her to be coming. Obviously, the conversation was a little bit different. But once I got back to my brother, he was like, "How did you do that?" And he explained that if he was in that situation, he would be scared that the lady would have yelled at him or screamed or caused a scene, which he does not like. Um, Compared to me, I know how to handle those situations, and I don't really fear that because I will match the energy of certain people. Like I said, it comes from where I've worked and the people that I've been around. But yeah, as well, there is no better option for being less or more social. As much as some may believe one or the other is more superior or better, it all depends on what you are and what you want to be in your life. Like I had mentioned, sorry, I want to be a real estate agent. And I do believe it is harder to become a real estate agent when you are quiet, shy, or introverted. It is not impossible, but it may become difficult as most of your job is amusing people with your speech, persuasion, and communication. Um, if you are not a communicative person, it may be harder for people to buy from you as they want the communication to be coming at all times. As I study real estate, I definitely do think that my speech skills is what will get me further. But as an example, my brother is a computer scientist. Keeping to himself is a part of his job and something he gracefully enjoys. So your lack of social activity could affect your mental health, though. According to the American Psychological Association, they point out that evidence linking perceived social isolation with adverse health consequences, including depression, as well as poor sleep quality. On the other hand, being an extrovert has its issues as well. According to Nick Lyon from Journey Front News, it is more difficult for an extrovert to properly make analyzed and emotional judgment. They could lack independence and may need constant validation from others, which may lead to great anxiety. Something that I struggle with greatly. I constantly feel like I need validation from others, or else I feel like I'm not doing a good job. But have you ever noticed that there are some people in your life that it is easier to talk to than others? This may be your best friend, your family members, coworkers, and sometimes even your significant other. It is noticed that it is easier to socially interact with people you can click with. This may happen regardless of your knowledge of the topic, meaning if somebody is talking to me about politics, I may not be able to converse. But regardless of that, sometimes you may click with somebody just because of certain things that they have similar with you. So according to the Greater Good magazine, we feel more connected with people whose postures, vocal rhythms, facial expressions, and even eye blinks match our own, which essentially means we tend to like people who are most similar to us, even if they don't like the same things as us. That doesn't mean that that you and your best friend, just because you guys like the same things, you guys are not clicking. That still means that it just means that in any other aspect, you guys could click just as much for just being very similar in your body language and whatnot. Like I said, like me and my best friend, we are complete opposites. We like completely different things. But when it comes to our sarcasm and our body language, we tend to mesh really, really well. And so we've been friends for many, many years. But throughout this extensive research, I learned that no matter how socially inclined you are, it can raise some good opportunities in life for you regardless. I also learned that it doesn't matter how my brother and I were raised, being introverted or extroverted is all in the aspect of fear, something we can be born with, and that's totally fine. There should not be any judgment of, oh, you spent too much time socially learning people, or you spent too much time in school. It is sometimes good to have a mixture. But if you don't have a mixture of both, I don't. I am very, very extroverted. It's totally fine. It just depends on what career path you would like. But like I mentioned, me being extroverted, I know that I wouldn't personally pick a career such as computer science, because for me, it is boring. It is not something that I like to do. I love to interact. So that is how just life is. But anyways, my sources for this presentation included, grab this now, Reflected's article, Why are some people more social than others? American Psychological Association's article, The Risk of Social Isolation, as well as the Greater Goods Magazine article, Why You Click with Certain People. And lastly, Nick Lyons' article from Journey Fronts News, what extroverts versus introverts social interactions. Thank you guys for listening.